And how do you explore like the limits? Like when I go snowboarding, it doesn't matter if I crash, I might hurt my head and that's it. But in an aircraft, it's different. How close have you been to the limits? And as a test pilot, do you cross them and go back?
We don't cross limits. We maybe have newly defined limits, which are bigger than the operational envelope is intended to be. So, but we certainly don't cross any limits. In fact, the test pilot, in order to keep things safe, is always very clear about the limits and knows the limits probably better than a typical commercial pilot would, because you are up against them a lot. So yeah, we butt up against the limits all the time. We have to. Yeah. One of my principles is I'm never prepared to touch a limit. So if I'm being asked, for example, to go to 160 knots and say that's our max speed, then I say, well, for this flight, you're going to have to open it up to 165 knots so that I can go to 160, because if I accidentally see 161 and the limit's 160, then I've exceeded it. And I don't want to do that. So I want them to clear 165, then I'll go to 160. And I think this is generally a good thing to do in testing, is to have a slightly bigger limit than where you're trying to go to. So yeah, we test beyond the limits that we need to fly commercially, and we push the aircraft to those limits regularly, but with a bigger limit in place for flight test purposes. Yeah. Does that help?
Yeah, definitely. And there are also like safer alternatives, which is like a flight simulator or simulations. To what extent do the simulations you did and the virtual testing in the motion simulator and so on correlate to what you feel out there in the field?
So we have the same software that's in the aircraft in our simulators. Yeah. It's the same. And so while the flight physics representation in the simulator is different, more pure, the air data, for example, can be perfect, whereas in the real world, air data is imperfect, right? Yeah. So you're always presented with something slightly different in the real world, but you can put turbulence into the simulator to put a bit of randomness into the experience. But it's the same software. The flight control software is the same. And it doesn't know whether it's in a simulator or in an aircraft. It has no idea. And so we always do a mission rehearsal in the simulator. Every test flight is preceded with a mission rehearsal, and we take that to whatever degree we need to really understand how much electricity we're going to use, where we're going to do it, what altitude, what the inputs look like, what the results should look like. We measure all that, and we won't go and perform a test until we know all those things. So it's a very detailed process to make sure that every step, every test flight we do is as safe as it can possibly be.
And I had the fortune to be in the vertical motion simulator of NASA in Ames. Nice. Have you played around in that one for Joby or otherwise?
I've played around in that one, not for Joby specifically, but for a NASA designed equivalent, which was quite a punchy machine. They were doing super fast decels, and they were looking at traffic deconfliction as you come into land, and I was asked if I was invited to take part in a trial there. I think the VMS is a fantastic device. Joby is close. We're close geographically, and we're close because they know our test pilots, and they know that we have pedigree, and so they invite us in. So yes, to some degree we're involved with the VMS work.
Okay, fantastic, thank you.
Have you got, like an Airbus, have you got